5 Unsolved Mysteries of Ancient Egypt, the mysterious death of King Tut. King Tutankhamun was only 19 years old when he died, and nobody knows for sure what happened. His death is a complete mystery, but not because he was in the prime of his life. The reason that Tut's death is such a mystery is that there were so many things wrong with him that it's hard to tell which one finished him off. King Tut was in terrible health. He had malaria, for one thing, and he was born with so many genetic disabilities that historians are convinced his parents must have been brother and sister. He had a club foot and genetic defects that, some believe, may have made his death nothing more than a matter of time. He also had a fractured skull that, for a long time, was thought by archaeologists to be a sign that he'd been stabbed in the head. Today, it's believed that his head just got damaged while his body was being embalmed, but the possibility that he was murdered hasn't been ruled out. He broke his knee shortly before he died, too, which has led to a theory that he was killed in a chariot accident. If he was though, getting on that chariot in the first place was a strange decision. Tut was so deformed that he couldn't even stand without someone propping him up. It could have been anything, or it could have been a whole slew of different things affecting him at once. The only thing we know for sure is that King Tut didn't get a lot of good news in his last month alive. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt. 2,500 years ago, there was a massive labyrinth in Egypt that, in the words of one who saw it, surpassed even the pyramids. It was a massive building, 2 stories tall. Inside, there were an unbelievable 3,000 different rooms, all connected through a winding maze of passages so complex that nobody could find their way out without a guide. At the bottom, there was an underground level that served as a tomb for kings, and at the top was a massive roof made out of a single gigantic stone. Countless ancient writers described having seen it firsthand, but 2,500 years later, we still aren't sure where it is. The closest thing we've found to it is a massive 300-meter wide, 1,000 feet, stone plateau that some believe was once the foundation of the labyrinth. If it is, though, the top stories have been completely lost to time. In 2008, a team of georadar specialists scanned the plateau and found that underneath, there appears to an underground labyrinth just like the one ancient writers described. As of yet, though, nobody has ever excavated it or stepped inside. Until somebody makes it into the labyrinth, we won't know for sure whether we've really found Egypt's greatest archaeological wonder, the unknown Queen of Egypt. In 2015, archaeologists stumbled upon the tomb of a woman who was buried among the Great Pyramids of the Old Kingdom of Egypt. In her tomb were inscriptions calling her both the wife of the king and the mother of the king. 4,500 years ago, when this woman was alive, she would have been one of the most important people on the planet. She would have had greater power than any other woman in the nation. And nobody has any idea who she is. Historians have dubbed her Khentakaus III, under the assumption that she was the daughter of Queen Khentakaus II. They believe she may have been the wife of Pharaoh Nefertiti and the mother of Pharaoh Menkaure, but they don't really know. They're just guessing. If her name was Khentakaus III, then there are no references to her whatsoever in anything we've ever found. Whoever she was once an incredibly powerful woman, but today, she is little more than an enigma. The disappearance of Queen Nefertiti. Queen Nefertiti is legendary for being one of the few women to rule over Egypt. She was the wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, likely the mother of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, and is believed to have taken over Egypt and ruled in her own right. And yet, while the tombs of other pharaohs still tower over Egypt today, nobody has ever found Nefertiti's final resting place. The search for her tomb has gone on for years. Up until 2018, archaeologists were almost convinced that they'd found her burial place in a secret chamber hidden in King Tut's tomb. In May, though, they meticulously scanned the wall and found that there was nothing there. Curiously, there's no mention of her death in Egyptian history, either. After about the 12th year of her husband Akhenaten's reign, all mention of her stops altogether. Some believe this is because she became pharaoh and took on a different name, but not everybody agrees. Some think that the answer to this mystery is a bit more mundane than we might hope. According to Dr. Joyce Tidsley, the simplest explanation is just that Nefertiti was never a pharaoh at all. Dr. Tidsley believes that people made a big deal out of Nefertiti in the 1920s because a sculpture of her face became popular, and they just wanted her to be popular badly enough to believe it. According to Dr. Tidsley, the explanation is simple. We don't know what happened to Nefertiti because she just wasn't that important of a person. The Dentralite. On the wall of a temple in Dentra, Egypt, there is a massive relief showing a very strange image. It shows, according to the usual interpretation, a snake in a big ball of fire flying out of a lotus flower while being held up by a pillar with human arms. It's a weird picture, but not just because the pillar has arms. It just happens to look exactly like a model of a Crookes tube, a type of early light bulb invented in the 19th century. In fact, it looks so much like a light bulb that some people think it just might be a diagram showing how to make one. Admittedly, that's the kind of theory you usually hear proposed by tall-haired madmen on the History Channel, but they have some merely convincing arguments. The room that shows the Dentralite is the only room in the whole temple that didn't have fire-burning lamps. Archaeologists have found residue that shows Egyptians burned lamps in every other part of the building except for this one. So if they didn't have an early version of a light bulb stored in here, how did they see anything? And if the room was pitch black, why did they bother putting such an intricate image on the wall?